bulk of the new accommodation sheltering up against it, and then a linked section in the middle which is much more about the landscape flowing through it, with a cedar roof on top of it, so that there's a sort of tension between the two halves of the building. And we wanted very much the front of the building to still have that import of the central bay as being the arrival place. Stopping short of having a staircase back up the outside, there wasn't a reason to have the first floor as our entrance. And in fact, it hadn't been the entrance latterly in the building anyway, that it had moved down to the ground floor at some point. So we wanted to keep that as the main front door. So coming in through the front door, to your left, you can see through to the courtyard space, the old ruined courtyard space, and you can see here some of the methods which we used to consolidate the ruin. Here's a frame which knits these two halves together, and it's stitched, a big corseting across it to stop it moving any further. But this big stone, it was a miracle of science that it stayed there at all. And so these big stainless steel frames knit the whole building together, as well as sort of playing a bit of a sort of slightly tongue-in-cheek game about framing those spaces. And the clients very whimsically have put fantastic little lights in this crack so it glows at night from outside. And the occupation of that is lovely. It's got little lamps and it's very zenny, it's quite sheltered, it's a very pleasant space. But coming back into the building, there's the front door on the left. The entrance space is a big vertical hall, which you really get a sense of the height of the original ruin, with mezzanine spaces up levels above it. And we didn't want to over-clutter it with a big grumping staircase, so we played down the stairs as much as possible, keeping it as light and glassy as possible. And coming up that stair up the top, you have what we call the Eyrie, where you can overlook the courtyard through the original door in that central gable, and also look down to the hall below. And this space is used as a sort of office space by one half of the client couple, and immediately next adjacent to it, his wife uses this as her office space. That was a sort of evolution of design. There wasn't supposed to be two offices in the building, so a brief change during construction. Again, this is another piece of the furniture, if you like, that we're making, beautifully made by some joiners from up near Inverness. And upstairs in that main part of the ruin, one big guest bedroom, which, if you fancy visiting to Col, you can stay in it as a B&B. Then coming through to the central section, coming through from the rooms within the ruin, the idea with this living space is that it is very much part of the outside. And there you see the main hall there, up to the kitchen on the left, which is the other space that occupies the original ruin. But really, we couldn't get rid of enough wall for our clients. They would have happily sort of just had glass all the way around, but they realised that that was impractical. We have the technology, so we can do it, and we can have highly insulated glazing, benefit from the solar gain in the central section, which heats up the rest of the building rather than cools it. But then looking the other way, to the new accommodation, we have a relatively cosy little snug sitting room here, which has been largely claimed by the children, which shuts down as well. There's more paneling, and again, it's another incarnation of that ingle nook that I showed you. And then in this new accommodation on the left, coming up the stairs there, well, there to there, we have window seats. When you come out and you look through and over the defensive wall to the west, the big sheltering wall, and the client keeps his boat down here, so he pops up and checks on his boat from there. It's one place you can see the boat from. And again, this is that idea of using local material and being aware of it and seeing it in the reveals of the window when you look through, that real sense of solidity, and using Scottish larch stained above. So all this stone came from the site. It came out from the original, the back wall of the original ruin. There were cross walls inside the ruin that had fallen down, and also some walls that were around the fields around the site that had disintegrated to the point that they couldn't really be re-established. So we are very heavily reliant on really good workmanship to make this. If this had been badly built, the whole thing could have been ghastly. we were lucky enough to have really good builders. And that's it from the sea. So that's the story of how that came about. And just lastly, currently we're in a happy position of working on 4 houses in 4 amazing places. We haven't started designing 2, I should say. We will be working on 2 more in the new year. We're working on 2 at the moment. And one of them is in Torridon. And this is putting us in a happy land of going up to the Highlands a lot, but we've also got a project in Skye for a community centre, so we've got lots of excuses to go up to the northwest, which is great when the weather's turning sunny. Hope it's not like last year, eventually. But back in the sunny days of summer, this is the site, right, it's like bang in the middle of Loch Torridon, to anyone who knows Torridon, with Leaguich and Ben Alligan overlooking it. A small peninsula, these are all views from the site, pushing out into Loch Torridon. And as well as the open aspect of the site, we have a very intimate component to the site. So we're preoccupied both with views out and what you see close underneath your feet up in the sky. And it's such a stunningly beautiful site, it's there to be ruined. You know, that's the worry. And so it's a terrifying site to work on. So we did a very long process of an analysis of the site and extraction of clues and the nature of the site, and really understanding the nature of the site to come up with a building that's not invisible, but a building that can work and sing along with the site. And this geology, again, became very important to what we were developing on the site. And so the extractive process, if you like, of seeing what's on the site already, where the trees lie, the lie of the ground, the bay underneath the site, the routes through the site, how you walk through it, how the natural spaces work on the site already. A very long process, a lot of time spent on the site, getting to know it. And then we start to put membranes, walls, roofs, surfaces, new surfaces, and around an occupation of the landscape. And then start to manipulate those spaces in different ways so they can function in the raw functions of a house. And hopefully, not in a contrived way at all, believe me, this planning that has come out of that is a reflection of that geology. So all these axes, they're not just willfully put on the site, they come out of what we found on the site, the views across, how you move through the site. And we have a sort of 2-part house, one for the clients themselves to stay in, and a small guest room for visitors, because they're sociable but they're sort of antisocial. You know, they quite like having guests, but they like to go away at the end of the day. So I think we can all understand that if we can afford to do it. So there's a small upstairs in this plan as well. And this is how it looks at the moment. It's not gone for planning yet, but we've had some good discussions with the Highlands Council. So a lot's happening at ground level, which is welding into the geology and the site, and the building backing up against the trees so it doesn't sort of loom up from a distance. Also natural materials, wood and stone, and a lot of discussion going on the impact of having potentially zinc roofs on the main structures and building, and then what then the impact of putting PV cells might be on that. It's all very intense discussion. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a reflection of what we've been doing and where we're at as a practice. We're in a very happy position of being extremely busy, and so long may that continue.
It's kind of quite unusual to have a busy architect, but I can see why. And if I get to the stage to have the money, I'd quite like you to do one for me. But thank you very much.